Sakuta is a lonely guy without charm and without any social skills to be proud of. However, everything started to change when Sakuta saw a beautiful girl wearing a bunny costume. Suddenly, Sakuta felt like maybe there was something he could do to support her. It all began on May 29th, when Sakuta imagined a girl asking him to kiss her. But Sakuta thought it was just a dream, maybe because he knew, in the real world, he had no appeal. When Sakuta woke up in his room, he saw a diary on his desk, with a message asking him to read it to the end if he wanted to understand what was happening. On May 6th, Sakuta went to the Fujisawa library. That's where he met the girl in the bunny costume, whose name was faintly written in the diary. While Sakuta was rummaging through some books, the bunny girl appeared, carrying a large melon that was swinging freely in the library, and apparently, only Sakuta could see it. As the girl walked closer, she realized that only Sakuta could see her, and she immediately ran away. Sakuta, curious, asked if she recognized him as a senior at the same school. The girl then introduced herself as a second-year student with the awkward style typical of a nerd speaking to a stranger for the first time. The girl in the bunny costume eventually confirmed her name was Mai, with a slight tease about the way Sakuta pronounced her name. Sakuta mentioned that he recognized her as a celebrity. Strangely, Mai told him to forget about that day and to remember the bad things as far away from her as possible. Even so, Sakuta still wrote about the girl in his diary. Mai was the only woman besides his mother who paid attention to him, and that made him keep thinking about her. At that moment, Sakuta saw his sister, Keed, crawling into his bed, asking him to leave before the situation turned into a family therapy session. On May 7th, on the way to school, Sakuta asked Yuma if he was interested in the girl in the bunny costume. Yuma admitted that he did admire her. Sakuta asked Yuma what he would do if the bunny girl appeared in the library, and Yuma joked that he would take her to the adult book section. As they walked to class, Sakuta asked Yuma if he could also see Mai, and Yuma confirmed that he could. Yuma explained that Mai had been involved in the entertainment world even though she was still very young, and it was surprising that Mai was still attending school. Yuma added that it was nice if Sakuta started to take an interest in someone besides Shoko, but he immediately poured cold water on the idea by saying that Mai wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole. Sakuta just admitted that he found it strange that Mai was always alone, without any other intentions. Yuma's girlfriend, Kamasato, then arrived and pulled him away, but not before giving Sakuta a sharp look. While sitting in class, Sakuta recalled Yuma's words about how Mai rarely went to school during her first year, because she took a hiatus after finishing junior high. As a celebrity, Mai was locked into some restrictive contracts, which forced her to take time off school. Sakuta realized that, because she missed those early months of socializing, Mai now had no friends in her class. Additionally, her celebrity status made people hesitant to approach her. At lunchtime, Kamasato approached Sakuta and warned him not to interact with Yuma anymore. Sakuta said he had no intention of interfering, but Kamasato reminded him about the incident that landed Yuma in the hospital, claiming that Yuma's social reputation could drop faster than crypto values if he kept being seen with Sakuta. Sakuta joked and asked if Kamasato was Pimasayanji, which annoyed her and made her leave. After Kamasato left, Sakuta pondered, wondering why people complained about being bored when they were unwilling to make changes in their lives. In the evening, as Sakuta was walking toward the train station, he found Mai standing alone, being chased by a man trying to act as an amateur paparazzi on a budget. Without a second thought, Sakuta approached her and drove the man away, making Mai thank him. Mai said she was used to handling situations like that, but it still felt exhausting. At that moment, Mai received a call from her manager, but she had no intention of answering. She said she already knew what her manager would say. When the train arrived, they sat together, and Sakuta started asking about yesterday's incident. Mai asked him to forget about it, but Sakuta honestly said that the image of the bunny costume was still stuck in his head. Mai just smiled mischievously, thinking that Sakuta was wasting a lot of energy thinking about it, but then she took it as a compliment from a young guy. Then, Mai mentioned that she had heard a rumor that Sakuta once sent 3 boys to the hospital. She said the information was online, complete with all the details. Sakuta looked confused. He didn't know the rumor had spread so widely and explained that he hadn't used a phone in a long time since he threw it into the sea. When Sakuta asked if Mai had any friends, Mai said there were only 2, but that was enough for a lifetime. Sakuta joked that it must be hard for a kid who became a celebrity to have a normal school life. Mai urged him to explain the truth to his classmates, but Sakuta knew that would only make things more complicated. Mai then opened up, sharing about her career that started when she was 6 years old. Even though she lived as a star, sometimes Mai wished she could experience a normal life. She told him about a time when she went alone to an aquarium outside of Fujisawa and realized no one could see her. At that time, Mai even tried to eat at a cafe, but the waiter couldn't see her, so she went home right away, and everything went back to normal. To test the strange phenomenon, Mai made the bunny costume, which usually draws attention. Then, she went to a donut shop and asked for a bun, but the staff still couldn't see her. Fortunately, Sakuta ordered one for her. As they walked home, Mai asked if Sakuta believed her story. Sakuta compared it to myths and superstitions, which made him invite her to his apartment to prove the theory. Sakuta reassured Mai that he wouldn't lock her in the basement. When they arrived, Sakuta started unbuttoning his shirt, making Mai think the worst. But it turned out he just wanted to show her the scar on his chest, which was quite intriguing to Mai. Mai was curious about how Sakuta got the scar, but he said he couldn't remember. Then Sakuta showed a photo of his sister, Keed, who appeared covered in bruises and bandages, revealing that it was all due to the bullying Keed had suffered. One day, the class representative started being hostile to Sakuta and even encouraged classmates to attack Keed with hateful remarks. When Sakuta got home, he found Keed with a gloomy face and saw bruises appearing on her body, as if by magic. Just like Keed's bruises, the scar on Sakuta's chest also appeared out of nowhere. He even remembered waking up with his body covered in blood, to the point that he had to be hospitalized. This was the true story, not the rumor that spread online. At that moment, Keed appeared, immediately feeling disgusted because Sakuta wasn't wearing a shirt. But Sakuta calmed her down and introduced Mai as an upperclassman at school. In a soft voice, Keed greeted her and introduced Nazuno, her pet cat. After that, Keed quickly ran off, making Sakuta apologize to Mai and explain that Keed was afraid of strangers. Sakuta also shared that Keed even stopped going to school and using the internet, all to reduce the impact of her puberty syndrome. Keed's case was quite similar to what Mai was experiencing, so Sakuta suggested that Mai return to the entertainment world before things became even harder to control. Mai felt offended, then quickly told Sakuta to mind his own business and immediately left the apartment. Sakuta chased after her to return her bunny costume, but Mai got angry and told Sakuta to focus on more important matters. A few days later, Sakuta realized that Mai had truly stopped coming to school, and it made him blame himself for possibly hurting her feelings. While working at the restaurant, a journalist named Fumika approached him, asking for permission to photograph his scar. Sakuta agreed on the condition that Fumika would give him information about Mai. After that, Sakuta went to the science lab and asked Futaba if it was possible for someone to become invisible. In her explanation, Futaba shared the theory that the existence of an object only matters when it's being observed. Panicking, Sakuta ran home, hoping he could help Mai. When he arrived at the apartment, he was relieved to see Mai waiting outside. Mai explained how more and more people couldn't see her, to the point that she couldn't buy food on her own. Sakuta handed her her favorite bun from the previous station and gave it to Mai, beginning 3 weeks that would become the wildest adventure of his life. The next day, they went to the supermarket to buy groceries. Mai revealed that everything she touched would become invisible. Sakuta was curious and asked if the same thing would happen if she touched him. However, Mai just told him to touch the carrot instead. Sakuta kept insisting on holding hands, but Mai held onto his arm instead. As Sakuta was surprised, an old man saw them and confirmed that people could still see Sakuta even though he was touching Mai. At night they headed to Mai's house, but Mai insisted that she wouldn't invite Sakuta in because her family was in the middle of a dispute. Sakuta once again suggested that Mai return to the entertainment world, but Mai immediately told him to mind his own business. Sakuta mentioned the contract her mother had made, which forced her to wear a swimsuit for an advertisement without her consent. This made Mai extremely angry, and she even slapped Sakuta, expressing how humiliating it was to be seen as a cash machine by her own mother. Sakuta then explained that he got that information from a journalist in exchange for a photo of the scar on his chest. Hearing that, Mai felt annoyed because Sakuta sacrificed his privacy for her, claiming that the journalist might be waiting outside her house, which would worsen Keed's situation. Mai then contacted Fumika and asked her not to broadcast the photo in exchange for the new information. Mai revealed that she would return to the entertainment world, but this time without her mother's agency. Mai even agreed to an exclusive interview so the media would stop bothering Sakuta. As they walked home, Mai confessed that she actually missed acting and was happy to share that with Sakuta. When they arrived at her apartment, Sakuta realized that their houses were actually quite close. Mai then apologized for slapping him and invited him to hang out on Sunday before she returned to the entertainment world. On May 25th, Sakuta got ready to meet Mai, but at the park, he saw a little girl crying because she was separated from her mother. Sakuta tried to offer help, but suddenly a girl appeared and kicked him in the back, telling the child to run away. After the chaos settled, the girl asked Sakuta to kick her back so they'd be even, but it ended up making a police officer suspicious. They eventually had to clear up the misunderstanding at the police station. Once everything was sorted out, they remembered they had plans with their friends, leading them to part ways to go to their respective places. Sakuta finally arrived an hour and a half late and received a small lecture before the two of them boarded the train together. On the way, Mai asked Sakuta why he continued to stay close despite the difficult situation. With a straightforward tone, Sakuta revealed that he didn't have many friends and honestly didn't have anything better to do. Mai then brought up the incident with Keed, the only person who had trusted him when she was hurt. Sakuta wanted to be that kind of person for Mai, but Mai assumed that the person he was referring to was another girl in his life, and without saying more, she got off the train. Sakuta chased after her and explained that the person he meant was Shoko, a second-year high school student he met when he was in his second year of middle school. Back then, Sakuta had even traced her to Minigahara High School, but when he got there, he didn't have the courage to confirm it. As it turned out, there were no records of a student named Shoko at that school, but Sakuta's feelings for Shoko were real. At that moment, Mai's mother, who was also her manager, arrived, and Mai immediately told her that she was firing her as her manager. But to their surprise, her mother couldn't see Mai, And even worse, she didn't remember having a daughter named Mai. Sakuta then asked her to check her phone to look for messages from Mai, but her name was already deleted from contacts, and the messages were gone too. Sakuta tried to convince Mai's mother to remember her own daughter, but Mai realized it was pointless and asked Sakuta to forget her as well. After her mother left, thinking it was all just a joke, Mai looked devastated. That night, Sakuta asked people if they knew a famous celebrity named Mai, but no one seemed to remember. Even when he called Fumika, who just days ago had promised to remember Mai, Fumika didn't seem to recall either. Although Mai had given up, Sakuta refused to leave her and suggested they travel far from the city, just in case someone out there could still see her. Finally, the two of them set out, and Sakuta informed Ki that he wouldn't be coming home that night. During the journey, Mai tried to hide her panic, but Sakuta could sense it. So, he held Mai's hand to calm her down. After arriving in another city, they stayed in an apartment. When Mai went into the bathroom, Sakuta called Yuma and felt relieved because Yuma still remembered Mai. Sakuta then called Futaba and found out that she also still remembered. They discussed the situation, and Futaba suggested that it might be related to the school, considering that only people at school still remembered Mai. After sharing a bed that night, Mai jokingly asked Sakuta to kiss her, as if regretting the missed opportunity. Sakuta felt grateful because Mai never gave up on him. In the middle of the night, Mai woke up and found Sakuta hadn't slept because he was busy watching her, making him look like a total weirdo. The next day, they wandered around the city. Strangely, no one could see Mai except Sakuta. In the afternoon, they arrived at the school, and Mai immediately went to her class. Futaba then appeared in the science lab and revealed that everyone at school, except them, had already forgotten Mai. Futaba explained that this condition might be due to a state of sleep, where human consciousness isn't functioning, causing Mai's existence to fade from their memories. Everyone at school had previously been used to ignoring Mai because of her celebrity status, and without direct observation, her existence seemed to vanish. If they too fell asleep, it was very likely they would completely forget Mai. After school, Mai asked Sakuta to focus on his work and not worry too much about her, but in reality, even during work hours, his thoughts were still fixed on Mai. Futaba suspected that the atmosphere created around Mai's celebrity status made her invisible to others. She advised Sakuta to stay alert so as not to be affected by that atmosphere. Eventually, Sakuta decided to consume energy drinks and pills to stay awake until the problem was resolved. Sakuta also started writing a diary, documenting every event he had experienced with Mai. The next day, Mai waited for him outside the apartment, while Sakuta showed up looking extremely disheveled, as if he had just crawled out of a trash can. At school, Sakuta asked why Mai kept coming even though no one could see her. Mai replied that she still hoped someone else, besides Sakuta, would notice her presence. While taking the exam, Sakuta nearly fell asleep, but he fought hard to stay awake. After the test, Futaba approached him, assuming he stayed up all night studying. At that moment, Sakuta realized that even Futaba was starting to forget about Mai. Determined to find a solution, Sakuta drank more energy drinks and read quantum physics books, but he couldn't find any answers. The next day, Sakuta arrived at school looking like a zombie, pale and extremely drowsy, to the point where he had to make himself feel sick to stay awake. Unbeknownst to him, Mai was watching him from outside the classroom. That night, Mai found him buying energy drinks and accompanied him back to the apartment. Mai offered a reward if Sakuta managed to get a perfect score on the exam. They studied together all night. When Sakuta let his guard down, Mai made coffee, secretly adding a sleeping pill so he could rest. Though he tried to resist, Sakuta eventually fell asleep, and Mai thanked him for all the effort he had put in. The next day, Sakuta woke up on May 29th and found Keed in his room. Keed discovered a bunny costume next to the bed, but Sakuta, now missing part of his memory, didn't think much of it. He found a note he had written himself, detailing events since May 5th, which pushed him to search for his girlfriend's name once again. On the train, Yuma commented that Sakuta looked more refreshed after a good night's sleep. On the way to school, Futaba handed him a slip of paper she had found in his book containing a request for him to make people remember her existence again. Though confused, Sakuta tried to understand the meaning behind the note. During the final exam, Sakuta suddenly remembered Mai, vague memories of them holding hands, causing him to tear up. Suddenly, his memories of Mai became clearer. Sakuta quickly rushed out of the exam room to find Mai, determined to fight against the atmosphere that made people forget about her. On his way, Sakuta recalled the little things about Mai that made her so special. When he arrived at the school grounds, he shouted that he had fallen in love with Mai since their first year. Even though he knew he might get laughed at, Sakuta kept shouting about his love, catching the attention of teachers and students watching him from the windows. Not long after, Mai appeared on the field and immediately reminded Sakuta to stop shouting, or he would make her regret it for ruining her eardrums. With a slight smile, Sakuta explained that, even though he had promised never to forget her, he had momentarily forgotten Mai. After endless persuasion and sweet talk, Sakuta managed to make up with Mai, who still refused to answer his proposal. Mai said she didn't want her emotions influenced by the atmosphere that could make them forget each other again. Instead, Mai challenged Sakuta, if he was willing to say I love you every day for a whole month, then she would consider his proposal. Mai then yelled towards the crowd, explaining that the rumor about Sakuta sending 3 people to the hospital wasn't true, and everyone on the field could hear her. Sakuta knew he would soon be called to the principal's office because of this incident, but Mai reassured him, saying she would stay by his side. On June 27th, exactly 1 month after his confession, Sakuta was packing his things backstage while listening to Kid watching the news about Japan's soccer team victory. When he arrived at school, Sakuta joined Futaba and Yuma, who were excitedly discussing the match. Later, Sakuta met with Mai, who brought him homemade food. Before they ate, Sakuta once again confessed his love and asked her out, but this time Mai just gave a slight smile and treated him like background noise. Apparently, Sakuta had been confessing his love and asking Mai out every day since May 29th, so by now, those words had become routine for her. Mai quickly changed the topic and excitedly announced that she had gotten a role in a drama starting in July. However, it was a late-night show, and her role was only for 1 episode. When Mai mentioned there would be a kissing scene, Sakuta immediately asked her to turn down the role. But Mai just smiled teasingly, saying it wouldn't be her first kiss because she had kissed Sakuta before.